Welcome to Porch Talks, and thank you for joining me on this journey toward greater emotional and spiritual well-being. Today I'd like to talk about a new part of the brain that we haven't explored together yet, and that's called the mirror neuronal system. And in the journey toward greater well-being, you can partner with this part of your brain to become more aware of how you're feeling. So a really brief explanation of this is that there are three areas of the brain that work together and light up together, called the mirror neuronal system. Sometimes it's shortcutted by calling it the mirror neurons, and there's still ongoing research on this. But studies have shown in general that when someone is experiencing emotional overwhelm, whether it's anger or grief or sadness or frustration or anxiety or whatever, that those three areas of the brain will light up. They will also light up, someone who is with them, and they'll experience the same thing in themselves. Those areas light up, and they are mirroring the other person's experience. Now, we're designed that way because we are social creatures, and we see ourselves and practice our better selves more effectively through this mirror neuronal system. They help us see ourselves more clearly. We can get clarity about ourselves in our being with others. Now, this doesn't mean that we're victims of the mirror neuronal system. It's just information. So an example of this that's really fun is, have you been with someone who says something and they start laughing and you start laughing, then you're both laughing and falling off the chair, crying, you're laughing so hard. That's the mirror neuronal system. Also, what we call mob mentality is an influence by the mirror neuronal system. So that's when it can get out of hand. Now, this doesn't mean we're victims of this system. It means we can gather information about how we want to feel, and we can notice in ourselves if someone is ramping up towards a flipped out state, and we can feel ourselves ramping up. We can become aware, oh, they're reflecting back, and I'm sensing how they're feeling, and that's called empathy. But it can stand in the way of our own well-being. So if you notice how you're feeling when you're around someone, and it doesn't feel good, then you can decide, what am I going to choose to reflect or feel or mirror back to that person. So for instance, I want to be the presence of love in the world. I want to love others. I want them to have their experience. I can be a witness of that experience. I can notice that if someone's flipped their lid, I can feel inside of me how I want to show up for them when they're in a flipped out state. So I can, in that moment, it's a choice point of how I want to feel and what I want to reflect. For instance, are you around people that are frustrated and angry and blaming and judging? And do you notice that you get sucked into that energy and want to blame back and judge back and feel frustrated and angry all the time? Or do you put yourself in places where people are loving and receiving and affirming of positive experiences and emotions of well-being? You can mirror that back. But when it's more difficult or dissatisfying, that's when this other part of the brain I've spoken about, in other words, what you can think about can create the feeling alive in you. In those moments when you want to when you notice you are mirroring back another person's less than satisfying emotional state, that's when you can draw from within yourself a reminder, perhaps, of who you are, or how you feel when you know you are loved, or maybe a faith statement that it's okay, take a deep breath, God's got this, the universe has my back in this, and I remember that I am love, or that I am present to this person, that I don't have to get entangled in what they're experiencing that may be lighting up in my own brain. So by being aware that there is this part of the brain that is mirroring your outside world, outside others in your world, and practicing what you want to mirror out into the world, you can little by little decide in that moment, or ask yourself, who am I and how do I want to show up? What do I want to mirror? Do I want to mirror the love of angels looking down on me and being present to this person? Or do I want to entangle myself in their energy of anger and frustration and overwhelm? So this is a practice. It's always a practice. And by knowing that this is going on, I invite you to have greater awareness of who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world. So thank you for joining me for this little bit about the mirror neuronal system. And if you have any questions, please post in the comments, and I invite you to subscribe to this channel if you're finding these of value in your own journey of emotional and spiritual well-being. Thank you.